This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 953 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jenn here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today we have a great tip from the eventing radio show's Martin Collins Weekly Trainer Tip segment by Doug Payne, author of the Riding Horse Repair Manual. Eventing radio show co-host Samantha Clark asks Doug to answer a listener question about hill work. And after that, I'll toss in my 2 cents. But before we get to today's tip, an important message from EquestrianCollections.com. Hi everybody, Coach Jenn here from the Horse Radio Network, and I am here with Debbie from Equestrian Collections for the Equestrian Collections Product of the Week. Take it away, Debbie.
Hi, Jen, and thanks for allowing me the time to talk to your listeners. This week, I'm featuring the Centaur Creamed Fly Sheet with Neck Cover. And, this is a season to be buying and wearing fly sheets. The flies are coming out. It's finally warm here in the mid-Atlantic and everywhere, and the flies are out. So I wanted to pick out a new type of fly sheet so that your listeners would have an opportunity to find out about the cream fly sheet with neck cover. The thing that makes this a little bit different is that neck piece has a zipper. It zippers on, unlike some of the other ways that people that the fly sheets have on. This one zippers on, and it's going to stay where it is put. It also has a padding right there at the withers. It has 70% of the UV rating, and that's due to the dense weave of this fabric. It's very tightly woven so that it keeps the UV rays away from your horse. With the moisture wicking, it makes it much more comfortable for your horse. It is a heavy-duty material. It doesn't rip like some. It has the hook and loop, the Velcro-type closures there in the neck. All in all, I think it's a really good new design. You can also buy it without the neck cover, and you can buy the neck cover separately as well if you so choose. Wanted to let you know about that because it's fly season and time to cover them up.
You can mix and match.
Right.
Thanks a bunch, Debbie.
Thank you.
Well, we do have a serious question from Becky too. She says, my horse is a long-backed, long-legged thoroughbred, that sounds familiar, who before I got him spent his life in stables or small flat paddocks as a racehorse and then with a professional rider who brought him off the track. He now lives with me in a steep, hilly part of New Zealand, and he really struggles trotting and cantering downhill, and we have to ride up and down some serious hills. He gets off balance and on his forehand, making running downhill very uncomfortable. If I use more leg, he goes faster and falls more on his forehand, and if I increase the contact to try and hold him together, he leans on me. Obviously not ideal if you have a downhill jump coming up. I'm currently only doing pre-training eventing, which is 80 centimetres, so the jumps are so small it's not a big problem yet, but definitely something I want to improve. I'd love to hear some training tips for improving balance riding downhill, please.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's I think that's a very common problem, and not only in New Zealand, although from what I understand, it's a beautiful country with lots and lots of hills. But I think many people throughout the U.S. and U.K., I'm sure, with ex-racehorses all sort of encounter the same sort of issues. And I do think it's very important. I might be in the minority here, but from sort of day one that horses come to our place, at least twice a week, we'll take them out trotting and cantering on as much terrain as we can find. The babies, it might be a very, very informal, sort of just trotting and cantering around. And of course, as they move on in their career, it would be more formal galloping and conditioning. So I think getting them out on terrain, is the very best thing, as most, as frequent as you can. And it would be even better, I think, if you could turn them out on a field that has some hill. But if you're not sort of blessed with any sort of terrain at the farm that you have, the sort of your next best thing is obviously to try and ship to a place where you can present your horse with these challenges. And it sounds like she's got a place that she could ride. And I think ultimately a horse, for them to become better balanced, they need to learn how to further engage or bring their hind end underneath their body, and start to carry a little bit more weight on their hind end, and that allows them to be a little bit more agile and off their forehand. So with that, as you would do in an arena, I would do a lot of gymnastics, or maybe it could just be small bounces, or even, again, small combination. The size of the fence I don't think is terribly important, but it has to be enough that the horse respects it. And I think it's very important to have, if it's a bounce, at least three fences worth of sort of in the line. I think if you have a bounce just comprised of two fences, the horse can sort of falling forward on their forehand still get through it. But by the time there's a third or fourth or fifth, certainly, it's very, very difficult for them to just sort of continuously fall through it. They have to learn then to start to rock back. So I would do my best to find a gentle slope at first, set up your gymnastic lines on it, and then obviously as they go on, as they progress, you can go taller and on a more steep slope. In competition, I do think that you would do your best to try to get as well balanced of a canter, or if it's not going to happen at the canter at the time, which is often the case when they're younger, is that maybe you just drop back to a trot, so that you know that the jump that they're coming to, you're giving them the best shot at maintaining their balance, in a, like I say, in a competitive environment. But present them with it as much as you possibly can, and in time, and again with your body, keep your body a little bit behind their center of gravity, so that you're not feeding into this tendency to get on the forehand. But
when you're doing the grid work, would you do that downhill? Would you do it uphill? Would you ever do it on the side of the hill?
I would tell you, if you've got the resources to do so, I would actually probably do both. I would do both going up and going down. I think you'd like to go down on a gentle slope at first, so they sort of get the idea, and then you could start to, bring up that slope, so it starts to get a little bit steeper. But once they have the concept, and I tell you, it's so incredibly important, is to have at least 3 jumps worth of stuff to work with, because that will really help show them how best to rebalance themselves more effectively. So they're not just relying on your hand or your support for balance, as they start to realize, okay, there's all of this, and you can sort of teach them a way that they can start to balance themselves. And that, in the end, I think is the goal, right? So that you can do less and less, and they can do more and more.
And when you're out hacking, when you first get them, you said as babies, do you hold them together quite a lot? Or do you just go on a fairly loose rein and let them figure it out for themselves?
I would say I would try to keep them sort of reasonably round, so I'd have some sort of contact, so that you have a means to communicate. On the sort of, when it comes to having a slope, I would tend to try and balance them at the top of the slope, and then sort of let them be. And if they start to lose it a little bit, I'm not going to interfere too much. But if they start to really go down sort of the wrong road, where they start to really quite fall forward or get heavy or rigid or any of that, then certainly make a correction. Maybe it's just do a circle there, or come back to a walk or trot, or whatever it might be, to whatever's necessary for them to sort of reset, and then allow them again. Because I think if you're supporting them every step of the way, they're never really going to learn how to do it themselves. So sort of get them in a position that they should be able to do it themselves, and then sort of allow it to happen. And if it doesn't, no big deal. Just bring them back in balance, and then let them go again.
Well, there you go. And now, my 2 cents. Something I have found to be very useful is doing leg yields and shoulder in up and down the hill at a walk. I also like to go up and down the hills by going across them sometimes instead of straight up and down. Works a different group of muscles in the hindquarters. Now, keep in mind, when doing this, I'm not going up really steep grades or cliffs or the Tevis Cup Trail. This is an appropriate exercise for the gentler hill. It's also really useful for folks who want to give their horse's hindquarters a healthy workout, but don't necessarily have a lot of training or riding experience. If you would like a question answered here on Horse Tip Daily, you can contact us via the website, horsetipdaily.com. There is a contact page right there. Ask your question, and we will do our best to find an expert to answer it. See you next time. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.